welcome to edition 7 of Reverend Rabbits. This time round we've had a bit of a reader's request. Somebody contacted me to say, could you please deal with the question that, like drunk men always ask you in pubs if you're a Christian, why does a good God let bad things happen to good people? Well, that is basically a question that in theology we call the problem of evil. And to be honest, it's not really a theology question, it's more of a philosophy of religion question, and philosophy, way above my pay grade. But we'll give it a go. Okay, let's begin at the beginning. I mean, literally. The beginning.
Now, we all know this story, right? In the beginning, God created human beings and he put them in a beautiful garden with everything they could possibly need, and they were completely free, and there was only one thing that they weren't supposed to do.
But then along came the snake. And the snake tempted Eve, and Eve tempted Adam, and they ate that apple, and it all went wrong. And that is what in theology is known as the fall of humanity. Now, after the fall, if you recall, Adam and Eve got chucked out of the Garden of Eden, and they had to do boring stuff like wear clothes and grow crops and be heterosexual. No, seriously, the Bible literally says the only reason women fancy men is because of the fall. I don't make the rules. Take it up with the Almighty. So if we read the Bible story literally, the answer to the problem of evil is actually pretty simple. It's not God's fault that puppies get cancer and stuff. It's our fault, human beings. We're the one who disobeyed the rules. The trouble is, it does leave a few questions unanswered, like, why are you eating my feet? No, that's not one of them. Questions like, why didn't God just forgive Adam and Eve when they got something wrong? What's so bad about eating an apple anyway? And why did God put the tree there in the first place? I mean, that's like Bluebeard saying, don't look inside this wardrobe because I've got 10 murdered wives in there, and then popping out to the shops. But the thing is, we're not actually supposed to take it literally. It's a myth, it's a story, like, when your teacher says, oh, I knew a kid that once swung on their chair and broke their back. It's not literally true. And by the way, that's not a kind of kooky, hippie, modern way of reading the Bible. That's literally how everybody read the Bible for thousands of years, until some Christians got a bit ridiculous about it and started taking it all really literally. But I think what the story says is something which actually is very true, that, sometimes the world just goes a bit wrong. And do you know what's weird? Science actually backs that up. Let me introduce you to the second law of thermodynamics.
The second law of thermodynamics says that if you make a cup of tea and then forget about it and leave it lying around, it will eventually go cold and be disgusting. I mean, I think it's a bit more sciencey than that, but that's the basic principle. Ah, forgotten about that.
If I'm going to be talking about the second law of thermodynamics here, I'm definitely going to be needing a fresh cup.
Allow me to explain with this high-tech demonstration. This tea is a hot thing. But if I leave it lying around and forget about it, the heat from the tea will go out into the everywhere, and then the tea will be a less hot thing. And that's science.
Look, it's got its own equation and everything.
Now, this is a law of science, which means it is definitely always completely true, at least until another scientist comes along and says that it isn't. So that means that basically wherever you are in the whole universe, it's always the case that heat will disperse from a hotter object to a less hotter object.
Hot to less hot. Hot to less hot.
hot to less hot.
Now, this dispersal of heat has actually got a proper science name. In science is known as entropy, which in the equation is represented by the letter S, because S for entropy is totally logical. Anyway, entropy turns out to be really quite important. It's not just about heat going out of your cup of tea. In a way that I don't quite understand, entropy is also what means that the whole universe is basically going down the Kazi. That's right. I regret to inform you that it's not just COVID-19 or racism or global warming or any of that stuff. Literally, the whole universe at the end of time and even now is going to rats. I mean, not actual rats. It's not like the planet Mars will eventually be a giant rodent, which actually would be kind of adorable. But basically, everything is always breaking apart, and the reason is entropy. Which, let's face it, is totally depressing, which is why we're all sitting in the gloom here. Why would a loving God create a universe that just was breaking up all the time, where bits were kind of flying away and descending into chaos, and at the end of time it's all going to be bleak and cold and dark and miserable? What kind of a God is that? But here's the thing. Entropy isn't just the process by which things fall apart. It's also the process by which all life throughout the universe is created and sustained. Take these lovely rabbit bars, for example. The protein and the fat and the nutrients in here are all very well stuck in this nice ordered lump. But it's only when the rabbits take them, break down all the proteins and churn them through their bodies that these are any use. It's that gives the rabbits energy to hop and move around and poo all over the floor and that kind of useful thing. So it turns out that illness and death and disorder aren't just the flip sides of the nicer parts of life, they're integral parts of life itself. The whole of creation moves that way. Things come into being, they break up, new things are formed, and so the world continues. Now, at the risk of committing some kind of heresy, I'd say that God is not necessarily so different from these very crunchy rabbit bars. Because, God could perfectly well exist without rabbits or trees or guinea pigs or people or any of it, really. It would all be fine. God's totally self-sufficient. But there's something about the nature of God which says that God always wants to pour out God's love and God's creativity into the world. So God is never going to be on the side of anything that just stays all stable and untouched and boring and cellophane wrapped. God is all about the unwrapping, the breaking up, the celebration. And if we want to live in the world, not just exist or survive it, but actually to live and thrive and enjoy it, then we need to be prepared to be a bit like God, to let ourselves be unwrapped, to take the crunchy with the smooth sometimes, to accept that there is some good and some less good, some building up and some breaking down as an integral part of what it means to exist in the universe. So, yeah, bad stuff happens sometimes. Sometimes bad stuff even happens to good people. This isn't a super nanny star chart, this is real life. But that's just the price we pay for living on this wild and crazy and beautiful planet. And personally, I reckon it's a price worth paying. See you next time.